Well, so has everybody done the tour? Managed to get round the tour?
Yeah, I spent about 4 hours in there.
That's brilliant. Doing it.
Can't say I spent that long now, but I did do it.
Were you doing it on computer, or has anyone got a headset?
Oh, you mean to do it with virtual reality?
Yeah, apparently, I think that's what it's designed to do, but I'd had to do it on computer.
Oh yeah, I had to do it on computer too.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
It's a shame. I would have loved to see it. Maybe I got sick. It was weird.
I don't know. I don't like the idea of not being able to see anything else. But on the other hand, when I have tried virtual reality, it is very immersive. So you do kind of like, you forget about the fact you can't see the room.
Yeah.
The best I seen with virtual reality was somebody was playing a snooker game and they thought they'd lean on the table and they just fell over.
That's when you really think that it's like proper, that you really are in the world, isn't it? That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I found it. I don't know. I'm a bit ancient. I think I did find navigating sometimes I found a little bit tricky.
Yes.
I think I think it's designed more for the headset, which moves with you when you move your head.
Yeah.
But still got round it.
Yeah, I learned my way around as well. I just went onto the kind of bird's view and then clicked on things where I thought I was. But sometimes, you did navigate weirdly back and forth, and you couldn't go back. And
Yeah. Oh, I didn't think to come out of the birds, into the plan view. I just only ever kind of found my way around somehow. Anyway,
there were some buttons down there. You could 2 different views. I think bird view was different. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know it existed, but I just didn't. It didn't occur to me. I kind of.
But Gary, 4 hours. Did you follow up every link they offered?
Not every link, but I opened quite a few links, which I've looked at since being in there. So I don't know how many hours I spent altogether.
I think I did maybe 1.5 hours or so. And I did follow up quite a few links too, actually. Actually, that's what I really liked, that aspect, that you could decide where you go in more and didn't have to constantly stand in front of this thing and watch, but you could sit, you actually were, I think, a bit more willing to follow up things. I don't know how everyone felt about that.
Definitely for the interactive aspects, because usually if you're in a museum, you don't want to stand at that screen too long, or there's people blocking, or they have the headphones that you have to put on, and you think, oh, do I really want to put on the headphones?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of an improved museum experience for me. Although I felt it was closer to a magazine, more like reading a magazine than a museum experience. They give you all these stories and you read it in a certain order and then it's over. That's what it felt like for me.
Yeah.
Others were missing. Huh? Sorry, go ahead, Georgie.
No, I was going to say, I think that's true, isn't it? I think the kind of almost ideal thing would be to do the virtual tour and then do the real one, or do the real one and then do the virtual tour after, to follow up on those things that had caught your interest or imagination. Perhaps, I don't know. Yeah. And some things that I felt like there were, where there should have been a video, or there were some things where you couldn't get close enough, weren't there, as well?
Yeah.
Harder to see what the small components were like, or whatever. Yeah.
That's what I felt too. Yeah, I couldn't get close enough. Yeah.
But yeah, interesting. I wonder kind of how you make that virtual tour. I guess you have to piece together a lot of I don't know if it's still or video footage somehow that you use. I guess it's I think it's
maybe like the cameras. Do you know these cameras that do like a 360?
Mm-hmm.
You have like a, and then it does photos from everything. And I think maybe that's because it always had certain points. You know, you have these little navigation points on the floor, and then maybe that's where the camera was placed, the 360 camera, and they then somehow put it together. I don't know.
Yeah, it must have been something like that, mustn't it? I know that companies do. That's what they specialise in.
Yeah.
So the question: what were the things that stood out to you? What were there any particular products, items? They're not obviously all products. There were other things. Was there anything that stood out, caught your interest?
Well, I'll get started. I'll start. For me, I actually come from a bit of an electronics background, so the Solue board was quite interesting for me in that, replacing the PCB with something that's more sustainable, because there's some rather nasty chemicals involved in that process at the moment. So yeah, and obviously that's a big issue from a recycling perspective. What else have I written here? There was the Marinatex, the plastic alternative from marine waste, which I thought was quite good. IKEA rugs and baskets made from the rice straw was good, although they don't sell them in the UK. I've discovered.
Oh, not yet. Maybe one day.
We can get it if we go to Spain. But yeah, you can't get to that. What else was there? A self-sanitizing door handle was interesting, but it was unclear whether the whole handle sanitized or whether it was just the fluorescent part. If that makes sense, because there was like a top and a bottom to the handle.
Yes, I wondered if that would feel actually a little bit over-engineered, if you see what I mean. And I was wondering where the power source for those LEDs was coming from.
Same.
I think that was a Dyson product, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it won a Dyson Design Award or something. So
I honestly, I'm not sure. I think it possibly is that sometimes things are. It's actually easier to just have hand sanitizer stations around and do that rather than over-engineer something. So yeah, I wasn't totally convinced.
I've seen the same kind of technology for an escalator, the handrail, but it's not in the handrail. It's just a box at the end of it. So every time the handrail does a loop, it gets sanitized. So
that sounds good. Yeah, is it like a UV light or something that See, that makes more sense to me that you're doing that on a.
Maybe water the plant a little bit.
Sorry.
I liked the idea of the Lego Braille bricks. I thought they were, if you were a blind person, I just love the idea that you could potentially use them to kind of create, particularly for a child learning Braille, be able to, and learning to read and write, that could be quite a nice way to.
I thought that was good, but it was sort of unclear how they would link together without all the studs.
I know it did say it was compatible with Lego bricks, so
I assumed. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I assumed that the Braille part was lower, and that the Braille said this is a red brick or this is a, it explained the what type of brick it was rather than anything else, so that say two children were trying to make the same model, the non-sighted child wouldn't be disadvantaged because they'd have the same information as that was my take on it.
Right. I'm going to have to look it up now, because I was totally I was thinking it would actually have letters kind of in that each one was a letter, but maybe I'm totally wrong about that. Yeah, interesting. What other ones? I'm just looking at my list here. Interesting. I thought the use of 3D printing kind of came across in a few of them, didn't it? The biometric collar, if you've got a neck injury, the idea that you could actually get scanned and have something made that's going to be a really proper fit for you seemed like a really great idea.
My wife works at the University of Dundee at the teaching hospital. She's based in the hospital, and they work with the orthopedics there. And I've printed a few false leg covers for them.
Excellent. Oh, that's really. It's the use of when you do T317, you'll see that in the case study, the use of 3D in medical situations has been really phenomenal and has allowed things to be done that, you know, previously were not possible. You know, creating things so that surgeons can test out something for surgery. There's you can 3D print a brain and then work out how you're going to get in to get a tumor out. There's also 3D prints of bones, so that when an insert needs to go in where someone's lost bone. Had astonishing stuff, really. They're even 3D printing, trying to 3D print hearts and ears and bionic ears and things like that these days. Well, that's been happening for a while. So
I think it was Nanobot was 3D printing with biomaterial, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I think the possibility of skin grafts, of self-healing skin grafts in the future from that is interesting.
I found that also very interesting. I mean, this project really kind of started a question for me, like, who's the designer? You know, in a sense, because it was a very interesting collaboration between, you know, computer scientists and biomedic researchers, right? So I was thinking, and you know, the design actually happened in between somehow. So it was so interesting. Yeah. It was on the edge of design, I would say.
I think there were several that were really quite emotive, and one of which was, which again I couldn't really get my head around that it could happen, was what's the game with all the blocks that kids are really interested? Minecraft. Mm-hmm. The uncensored library. To put that in a game, I just couldn't get my head around that. To give people access to something in such a clever way that they couldn't access in any other way. To give people access to literature that is banned in their countries is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. That was brilliant.
I very much agree. I was also very stunned by that. I tried to get in and try something out. It was so like, wow. Yeah. I was wondering, Georgie or anyone, did you, because normally they have the designs they win. I couldn't find that. Or maybe I should have put that as
No, I didn't see any that said winner. So maybe they.
Because I would have bet my tip.
That was on the website, because the Teeter Totter wall was the overall winner, I believe.
Right.
I think it was on the actual Beasley Design website. It gave the winners for the different categories on there.
That makes sense. Yeah, I guess that they probably prepared that exhibition and then lockdown was announced and they had to kind of quickly kind of turn it into a virtual thing. So I mean, they've done well to do that. There was one thing that made me laugh. I came out and talked to my daughter about it. It was the vegan bag, which would be the price of a New York DJ's night's wear. I thought, I've no idea what a New York DJ earns on a night's work. And B, what a funny metric to use.
I think it depends how good the DJ is.
My wife actually looked the bags up online, and they're about 300 quid.
Wow.
Oh, blimey.
That won the fashion category, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not my thing. What did you think about the I thought quite controversial, the Uribos steak? The made out of your own cells.
I think that is a great idea, but I'm not sure I would eat it.
That's the whole point, though, isn't it? Because we don't eat meat in our household. And that was such an interesting idea, because most people would find that repugnant, and they wouldn't be able to really work out why they find it repugnant potentially. But how is it more repugnant than eating somebody else's leg?
Yeah. No, absolutely, yeah.
And so it's a good thought-provoking idea, not necessarily very marketable, but a very, very thought-provoking idea. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, it's a provocation, isn't it? And I'm a vegan, so I'm all with provocations on that front.
I didn't read it in detail. Was it actually produced? Is it an actual product, or was it just a speculative design?
I think it was a speculative.
Yeah, I was wondering.
When you saw how small those little pieces of meat were, because you're cloning it in, I don't know how complicated that process is. I mean, they're obviously doing it in labs with other forms of meat product, aren't they now? But I imagine it's a very expensive process as well.
They are selling lab-grown meat in Singapore, apparently, so I don't know whether it's that particular thing, but it is a thing.
Yeah, it won't be that one. It'll be grown from, I don't know, beef cells or whatever is the acceptable meat in there.
Chicken cells. Chicken cells. I'm just reading it here.
Probably, yeah.
Not human.
Yeah. What about there were a few sort of architecturally type ones. What about I thought the bus shelter was quite interesting.
I like the bus shelter.
Yeah.
I like the bus shelter.
It was. Did you not see it, Nick? It was like tall, kind of interesting shaped curved boards, which came from the roof of the shelter, which also.
Oh, I must have missed that.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, they revolved. So if you could either have your own. You could lean up against them, and you could either have your own space, or you could turn around and be chatting to your friend. And it had information.
Seen that one. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Need to go back.
It was just such an interesting take on a sort of everyday piece of street furniture that we're kind of used to. Yeah.
I like the Indus. I think it was the tiles that are coated in a gel that channel toxic waste, tainted water, removes the toxicity from the water with the gel.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Using algae in that way to cleanse wastewater.
I love that one. They were so beautiful as well. Like it was the whole project was just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, really gorgeous, I thought.
And talking about cleaning water, the box for filtration for Flint, because that's almost like a forgotten community, even though everybody goes, oh, it's dreadful, the water course is being contaminated, and nobody's done anything about it. But they made those boxes, water box mobile filtration system, and they're in the churches in Flint now, and anybody can access the cleaned water free of charge now, because that's been going on for several years now, hasn't it?
Oh, it has. It's a disgrace how a country like America can not solve something that terrible. I just don't know really. But yeah, I watched the video for that because it's something that I'm aware of and think about occasionally. It had one of my favourite architectural developments in there as well. It had Goldsmith Street in Norwich.
That is such a good one.
Yeah, is fabulous. I went there with my brother lives just outside Norwich, so I dragged my sister-in-law around it and took lots of pictures a couple of summers ago.
Did you write a blog about that?
Mm-hmm.
Did
I did write a blog. Yes, I did write about it in the design blog. Yes. Because that idea of public sector taking over the idea of passive house and actually really creating a really interesting development was I just thought that was great. Is there anything else that stood out? I'm just looking up.
I think the K bricks were really interesting as well, which were made, they were 90% recycled construction waste and could be made in 24 hours without the use of any fossil fuels. And it's one of the things, we've got a lot of housing that's not really, we keep renovating things, but a lot of housing is not really fit for purpose anymore. But if you could knock things down and then reuse those materials instead of having to bring in new materials, sustainable or otherwise, then that would be a great way to actually do a regeneration of an area, which is really, because you can keep retrofitting insulation, etc., but it's never going to be as good as a new build that's done by passive house or similar principles. And so the K bricks actually address that idea of taking down housing that really for now isn't really any good anymore.
Yeah, that was really good. What I was interested to know was how they achieved it, how you actually manufacture them.
Yes, they didn't seem to say, did they?
No, it didn't actually say. I'm just looking it up now to see if anybody can tell me, but I can't see it yet. Now, someone's just put something in the chat. Oh, Saf, you like the self-sanitizing door handle? We did discuss it. Why do you like it particularly? Yes, in a toilet. That actually, I hadn't thought about that, but in a toilet door, that would actually be quite a nice one. I'm not sure about it in every kind of door situation. Yes,
I've actually 3D printed little tools for us, which click over door handles, and you can use that to open a door handle. It's got a little bit that sticks out. You press lift buttons and things.
Yes, I nearly bought one of those in Waitrose, and my daughter said, "You don't need another thing like that." Yeah, she was probably right. I probably would have lost it in the bag, but it is, that's a good idea if you've got your own clean way of doing it. Nick, what stood out to you?
One sec, let me just, I found actually loads of things we've already mentioned. I do think, I think for me, the bots really stood out, but also the steak. So all these little weird things. The moments of clarity collection, for some reason, enticed me. It reminded me, there's a fashion designer called Chalayan. I think he's from Turkey. He's always been working with transforming dresses. And for some reason, I mean, obviously totally impractical, but also very... another very thought-provoking piece, the blow up rubber or latex dresses, and then the way they change and fall onto you. yeah, I just found it really interesting. I like the weird projects for some reasons. I don't know. But one more thing I really liked was with all the other renewable materials that the project kind of and the exhibition, there were loads of them, and the previous years was actually similar. I like the corn husk, and that reminded me somehow, in Yucatan, we've been to the museum where the loads of corns and how it was used been introduced, and it just reminded me on how kind of locally sustainable ideas can make it, to remembering what was good practice previously, and
Yeah. Anything else? Did anyone like the smart halo, the bike thing, the went on your handlebars and helped you to navigate? I thought that might be quite cool if it helps you when you to know where you're going without having to kind of check your phone or take your eyes off the road.
Quite useful in a way, yeah. I'm very curious what what you've thought about the masters. What was it called?
Foreign masters.
Yes.
Yes, I wondered about that.
Yes. What does anyone think about that? Since you're in the education industry.
I thought it was quite strange as someone who's been doing a lot of courses generally, sort of putting them together to form a, because that's what it seemed to be, was they were studying individual items and then putting it together to form a master's, and I just thought it was a bit strange that you were able to do that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not accredited or anything, right? It's really just, it's a bit like informal learning somehow,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us have been doing that for years, but we're not up for a design award.
Maybe you've missed your chance there. Anyone else? What do you think about that one?
Well, it's an interesting concept because, I mean, it's very often talked about, is an OU degree as good as that keeps coming up again and again. So is a self-built master's going to be considered in the same way as a normal master's, if you like, wherever it comes from? And it's about, I suppose, again, you're thinking about, why does somebody want to do something? Is it the perception? What's the perception of the person wanting to do the DIY masters? Is it, I mean, say like back in the olden days, if you couldn't afford to buy a dress, you'd make the dress for yourself. People don't do that so much now, but you'd go and buy the fabric, go and buy a pattern, make it yourself. Seems to me like they've done that, but is it for them or is it for other people? Or is it challenging the idea of education and how education is actually put together, and how and what we afford, different types of learning? Is it, maybe there's several strands to what we need to look at with something like that, because theoretically, I mean, people could put together blocks of all sorts of different things. Because again, with the world, I mean, I didn't know Minecraft. I know it's a thing, but the idea, going back to the library and the thing. So if there's something I don't know about or somebody doesn't know about, there can't be a degree in it or there can't be a master's in it. So maybe somebody needs to put something together if it's so new that there isn't anything. Does that make sense?
You had your hand up?
Yeah, I wonder if to some extent it's also questioning the need for a certificate. Because you know, a lot of the time the experience, the portfolio, or what's on your CV actually matters a lot more in a lot of different industries than the certificate you gained. Like my certificate has nothing to do with my card job. Nobody asks for it even. They don't mind as long as you can do your job. That's fine. So I wonder if it plays into that aspect of things as well, and the focus on practical experience in a portfolio as opposed to the certificate.
It reminded me a bit of apprenticeship somehow. I mean, again, not as a degree apprenticeship, as it's quite modern at the moment, but more in a, you know, like a very old time apprentice where you go, previously when you became a painter, had loads of apprentices who painted their things. It's not exactly the same, but it is in a way. She, you know, the student, she wanted to do a master and she searched for people she admired. So, you know, like a master. And she had these, she did projects, you know, and she probably had crits and things. So it's a little bit in that vein, not quite the same, I agree. But yeah, a little bit like a very old system of learning arts and design, I think.
Yeah, I figured that if she'd kind of made those connections with some quite established and important people, then that's kind of a way of trying to introduce herself into their studios and their world. And I think it, for an individual, it probably worked well, but whether it would work en masse. Is it Steve that's got his hand up? Stephen Talbot?
Yeah, it actually reminded me of a book I read a while ago. I think it was called Ultra Learning. But this guy actually looked at what the degree was at MIT. I can't even remember the subject, and basically duplicated it. So found lectures online and courses and things like that, and basically duplicated the syllabus and did it in 9 months, I think it was, instead of 4 years. It kind of reminded me of that. Rather than, and his point was that he'd got the same learning out of it, but done it a lot quicker, and it kind of reminds me a bit about that.
Seems like exactly the opposite, is it? Like this person. I mean, as you say, I haven't heard about that one. It's really interesting.
Yeah, he duplicated an existing degree, but it's kind of the same thing in a way.
The material. Did they have interactions with tutors and the whole experience of being in conversations about it?
So many lectures are online and things, so he was able to find quite a lot of it because a lot of the material was already online.
Yeah, but it's material. Everything else, like, you know.
Assessment is the thing.
But he kind of claims to have this degree, but when was it obsessed? Although there was something about him doing tests, but I don't know whether he did the old tests or what. I don't know. I can't remember. It was a while ago I read the book, but he did do some sort of test, but under what sort of conditions, I don't know.
I can see in something like computing, where if you're wanting to become expert in code and development, there's a lot of a practical component that you can demonstrate to an employer by building stuff. If you can find what the kind of assessments are, and you can do the projects that are the kind of projects that would be being done in the universities, then you've got something to show employers. I think it would be harder to demonstrate with a kind of an arts and humanities degree, or possibly a science-based degree where you're trying to, people want kind of confirmation of your knowledge set, whereas computing, you can demonstrate that through showing them that something you've built or programmed or whatever. Maybe, I don't know, it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Make us all redundant.
I don't think so.
No, it's all right. I'm not worried. But
I think there's space for both.
Yeah, and there's a lot of reasons why people go to universities that are sort of, well, for younger people, that beyond, it's the kind of the social things, all the things actually that they're struggling at the moment because they they haven't got them because they're not in university at the moment. Yeah, or someone's put a link. Yeah, it was MIT.
Thanks, Anna.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I should follow that up. Anything else? Anything you really sort of thought, what a waste of time, what a waste of space, you know, why is this in the exhibition?
Personally, and this is going to be controversial, but the Banksy stab vest, I just was like, well, you know, is it a design or is it just somebody's painted a Union Jack on a stab vest? It just seemed very political to me rather than an actual design as such. It was more of a political statement. And I just wondered, is it really in the right place?
Yeah, that is an interesting and controversial choice, isn't it? I mean, I like Banksy, and I quite like the statement he was making with that vest, but I would say it's a one-off piece of art rather than a design that you're going to replicate. Yeah, and actually it's quite old now, that one. I mean, maybe time just moves so quickly, but it seems like yonks ago since that stab vest was in the public eye. He's done a lot of other things since.
Yeah, I mean, how many live performances has there been in the last year? You know, it must be quite old.
Yeah.
It was one on stage, wasn't it? So,
well, they did say it was up to sort of the beginning of lockdown, rather than, they didn't try to put anything in that was, I think they said there wasn't anything from like last year. So
I think the Cold War Steve Twitter account that's quite political as well.
what was that one? I can't remember that.
Cold War Steve.
Ah.
Oh, the
He does political cartoons.
yeah, the jigsaw
compositions.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had an
Yeah,
exhibition
that's
on a beach. It's quite political too.
Yeah. That's an interesting question, is how political is design?
where do you draw the line as well, I suppose?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say someone's got their hand up, and I might have just stopped you.
No, I didn't have my hand up, but maybe I stopped the person with their hand up.
I think it's Alex has got their hand up.
Yes, all it is, it's not it seems to be the only really commercial thing, and I don't really understand it entirely because I'm not a scientist, but the one that's ICYE, IC, and it's the 1 meter radar satellite imaging device. And the interesting thing about that is it's been designed with regard to the commercialization of the space sector. And one of the things that we really haven't as a human race destroyed as yet is space. And there's the opportunity to mine an awful lot of things out of space. You know, there's huge resources out on the different planets in different things. And you can, and of course, if you do that and you bring things back to Earth, then you're changing the nature of, you know, everything that's on Earth is on Earth. It is what it is. You know, you've got a finite number of things. Well, if you get a lump of Pluto and bring it back to Earth, you've suddenly changed things entirely. So to me, that's a potential sort of like fracking, or like it could be a sinister invention in that it's something that allows people to exploit somewhere else, not in our solar system, not in our, you know, somewhere far away, and mine their resources, if you like, and bring them back here. That's, I think that one could potentially be quite sinister because it's for commercial gain, huge commercial gain potentially.
Yeah.
And it's, sorry.
I was going to say, we don't know whether that brings with it something that may, you know, not that I think there are viruses in space, but it might somehow affect our us in a way that we don't yet know. So that's it. It's an interesting one.
It's like where on our course where we studied the guy that invented the Kalashnikov, and then he regretted the fact that it's been, you know, the weapon of choice of guerrilla warfare, etc., etc. And you can design something. I mean, that's gone on with Nobel. All sorts of people design something and then regret their design because it's used for something that they really didn't want it to be used for.
Yeah. There's quite a lot of things. I mean, the other things that I've seen discussions about using space for things, 3D printing in space. So 3D printers that are actually printing cable and filament without the problems that gravity gives. So you print them and they kind of tail out of the spaceship somehow, and then you bring them back to Earth, kind of fully made in a much longer length than would be possible in a terrestrial setting. But I've yet to kind of get my head around how exactly that works and how you land things and make sure that they get to where they need to be. But it is interesting that having spoiled this planet, we're now looking to spoil other planets as well. Anything else anyone thought was wasn't sure about?
I felt in general I was surprised, or maybe impressed, by the amount of things that can be called design. So like this Chilean rape protest song, for example, that's thought about as a design, and it just made me think about, okay, is the design the thing? Like a good design, is it a good thing, or is it a design which leads to some good happening? Like, it's still human intervention, but is it design? I wasn't sure. Like, I thought that edge of design was kind of interesting. So yeah, similar, I guess, to the Banksy vest or the TikTok video that someone mentioned.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, that's always every year. I feel that this especially this exhibition brings about exactly the same question again and again. You know, the boundaries of design and what it is. I mean, there are many, you know, definitions of design and what it is, but we know it's a very human activity, right? To create something new from, I mean, something novel. But I think the important thing is that it's changing something. So it's, you know, so whatever it is that's created has an impact. You know, it's supposedly and obviously to improve certain things, but it can, of course, has many other. So the thing is, it maybe doesn't matter necessarily if it's a physical thing or if it's tangible, or so in a way it's quite interesting, you know, what's the boundary of designing. But I think important is that it's changing. I mean, Simon always said that. I quite like that quote, you know, changing to preferred situations, where it's quite broad in a sense, you know, the definition of design. Yeah, I find that really interesting, and every year that this exhibition is, you know, bringing up the same thing for me.
Yeah. I mean, design is, you can't get away from the fact that it is political. Even the most innocuous of things that we take for granted have kind of embodied a set of values, and, you know, the very fact that they exist has kind of got a political dimension to it. So I guess they're just, by putting those kind of provocative kind of things in, like demonstrations and songs, and they've had banners in the past, haven't they, that which is perhaps more obvious because you could say that was a piece of graphic design. They had the one year they had the Pussy Riot pink hats in. Do you remember, Nick? But those are deliberate acts of people trying to think about how do we bring that change about, and that, so in that respect, yes, it is. But even, you know, my computer mouse or my stapler has got an element, a sort of a political element to it, in the sense of the decisions that are made about the materials and about the very existence. You know, I mean, when you think about what we know now about plastics and how horrendous they are, and how they're destroying the planet in horrible ways, you know, and yet we still continue to design things that are, you know, not biodegradable. So, yeah, interesting though. If you had to redesign if you were designing a virtual tour, would you do that? Would you do something differently to what was the particular tour? I'm just thinking it's an opportunity to think about that. We very nearly last year had a virtual exhibition, didn't we, Nick, for a end of year student exhibition, and we chickened off in the end because it seemed to be too much work. But yeah, I just wondered how people might approach designing. Might have approached designing that tour. Oh yes, yeah. Someone's mentioned the Marina text. Yeah, that was a really interesting material for a plastic alternative. And those kind of developments can't come quickly enough, really, can they? They're seafood waste or plant derivatives. There's so many things that we could do closed loop recycling on, that would actually mean that we didn't have to keep digging up the earth in order to get oil, in order to make stuff. Suzanne said there were some parts of Nottingham Trent had a virtual degree show last year. Yeah. Yes, it's something that needs a bit of thinking about. Don't suppose there's anyone here that's good at 3D exhibition design. That's what we need.
Yeah, I've just seen Saf's comment. We had a short discussion about the experience of the exhibition, and we said exactly the same thing. There wasn't enough detail; you couldn't get close enough. So it would have been nice, I agree, to have, like, maybe, if it's, you know, appropriate, and virtual rendering where you can go close and yeah. I mean, obviously it could have been, you know, much more in that sense, but yeah, it's interesting. As Jodie said, we did think about, I mean, there's this Mozilla Hubs. I've been to a conference last year where the organizers tried to simulate some of those shared spaces you would usually have on conferences, where you meet and mingle, or where you have exhibitions or discussions in a particular space. That didn't quite work out. Felt rather empty. It was interesting, and they had, like, avatars, and you could walk around, and you do see people, but it felt strange and different. And we thought about using an exhibition system. What was it called again? We didn't do it in the end. But yeah, it's enticing, isn't it, to think about that you could actually simulate a space and recreate some form of physical exhibition. I don't know. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
So was the 3D space better than just, say, a catalogue? Because I think what felt was a bit similar to, yeah.
Mm.
I think it was better than, say, just a website, because I wouldn't have looked at every single piece if it had been just a website.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Has anyone, this question, has anyone actually been to the Design Museum?
Nope.
No. Would you've made it there if we had a physical kind of get together?
Probably not, due to expense. Obviously, I'm in Northern Ireland, so flights, hotels, all that type of thing.
Yeah.
The same for me coming from Scotland.
Yeah, this is the advantage of the virtual, isn't it? That we've when we put together the annual exhibition last year, we were able to include someone from the Isle of Hebrides, someone from the south of Spain, people all over the UK, which on our exhibition team, which we will be looking for again this year if anyone's interested. It's a good experience and good to put on your CV. But yeah, it does mean you can be more inclusive, which is good. Because we did, was it 2 years ago we went to Belfast, for, to the design week there, which was lovely, but only 3 people were able to actually join us for the
same for Dundee. There were
I was supposed to go, but I actually ended up in something else to do with Design Week.
Oh.
At least you've been there.
You did something.
Yeah, Dundee was the same. It was really interesting. The V&A in Dundee is amazing. We had a good tour, but also very few people could attend in the end. Yeah.
That would have been ideal for me because it's just down the road.
Yeah, it's a great, nice thing to have down the road. Actually, Derek, our colleague, who comes from or has lived in Dundee for a long time, so we had a kind of we were seeing it for him, I think. That's, it would be good to know where everybody actually is, which parts of the country you're all in. I should have put a virtual map up somewhere, shouldn't I?
Just east of Dundee, Broughty Ferry.
Excellent. North Wales for Alex. Glasgow. Yeah, we did. We went to the Riverside with the same trip that we went to Dundee. We also went to the Riverside Museum, which was brilliant. Actually, we really enjoyed that.
Yeah. And you've been in Cardiff.
Norwich. So you've perhaps seen Goldsmith Street.
Cardiff. You remember we've been to Senate, which was actually really nice.
Yes, Senate was brilliant. Have you been there, Suzanne?
Yeah, it's a really great building.
Yeah.
I used to live near there, so yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. We did do. We tried to visit all the nations, didn't we, on our tour?
I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it was great, and we met students from all over the place, which was lovely.
It's just the timing, right? You can't get the timing ever right.
No, that's the problem. It's everybody's always so busy.
That's interesting. So yeah, I mean, most of you might have not actually made it to the actual design museum, if I can see from the locations. It's good to know that there's an option. I have the feeling they're probably going to maybe, I wonder what the design museum, what kind of feedback they get from visitors and what the numbers are like if they keep these kind of elements.
Yeah, I would have thought if they're getting decent numbers that they might actually try. It will depend, I think, on how many register, but and also how much it costs them to put that kind of 3D tour together, whether it's significant cost or not.
Yeah, but if you can get many more visitors, in addition to the physical one, might be.
Yeah. Well, you're not limited by nation, are you? You could be visiting from anywhere in the world if as long as you can pay. And a £5 isn't too much for most people will pay that.
I wonder if you could have a museum in a different part of the world where the featured exhibit was that you put on the virtual reality goggles and you visit this museum.
Mm,
Something
Ooh,
like that.
be
That would,
nice, wouldn't it?
that would be interesting, wouldn't it? That would
Like
be really,
virtual tourism.
yeah.
Yeah. Haven't I read something about virtual tourism? Oh, wasn't in news some kind of, oh, I forgot. Haven't. Yeah. Yeah.
There's those kind of things have been tried with elderly people, haven't they, to kind of try and, where people are not able to get out and about, and using virtual headsets with travel and kind of calming scenes and things like that has been quite well received, I think, in some, where they've done that kind of research.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes it, I guess it's not quite the same as the smells and the physical feeling of the place, but I think it can induce a lot of the well-being that comes from being in an interesting and nice place. So yeah, I'm sure we'll see more of that, especially if we can't go anywhere.
No, exactly. I was just thinking that. I don't know how everyone else would think about it. I mean, if you could go, in pandemic times elsewhere, I think I might actually get some glasses and do that. Yeah.
One of my friends it's actually an XOU student of mine who I stayed in touch with, and I'm still friends with on social media, and he has some kind of treadmill that he uses a virtual reality app so that he can be running through the middle of somewhere in Portugal and stuff, and he occasionally posts videos of where he's been running that day. And that's quite cool, because it's like video. Obviously someone's taken a lot of video footage, but where you can turn and you can go down a side street, or you can keep running forward. And I thought that was a really cool idea if you're stuck indoors, Yeah.
Maybe a market for life simulators.
Well,
it sounds so awful, but if you are in lockdown, you kind of think,
I thought, we'll all be sat on our couches with virtual headsets on, getting huger and huger, but being fed kind of intravenously.
no. There's a movie that actually has this as a theme somewhere. I don't know what the movie was, but oh god.
Oh yeah. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh. Well, it's been great to chat to everyone.
Yeah. What do you think? Is it worth doing something similar again?
For me, definitely, yes.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's quite nice to have a shared experience and just come together and talk about it, right? But actually, I think at some point we thought that we might actually walk through it together. But I don't know. We weren't sure if the computer capacity would, if that would be possible at all, and talk to each other while we're walking through. But I mean, yeah, maybe something to try next time.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I guess you'd have to. Yeah, I suppose you'd have to have teams on at the same time, and then. I mean, I did wonder if it was possible to kind of share the screen.
Yeah.
And just have.
But my computer was very noisy. It worked a lot. It took a lot of energy to go through this thing. I don't know what everyone else had, but my computer was pretty much on the edge. It was very noisy, fanning, overheating, and yeah.
I didn't notice that, but but on the other hand, my daughter tells me that I'm deaf, so probably it could have been doing that, and I just didn't notice.
Good things about that.
Yeah, some things are not so good.
Okay.
But yeah, yes, it would. yes, maybe we could try it on. Maybe we could try it out on something that's kind of free, Nick. Perhaps me and you could have a try one day on something.
Or if you know anything, if you come across anything and you think it would be nice to share that, to either look at it with others or to discuss it with us, it'd be quite nice to have something you suggest. We can have a meeting around anything. I actually really enjoy talking to students, and not just necessarily just module things, but just generally, in design terms, anything goes.
Yeah. Are you all on our Facebook, in our Facebook group?
I don't use Facebook anymore.
Yeah, no, I know not everyone's keen. So some are. The only reason I ask is just because that's quite a good way of making a suggestion. But you can always use our emails, which we were on the email about this, to let us know if you've got some ideas, because we're really happy to hear.
Or on the forums of the study site, maybe as well.
Yes, the study site forum would be another.
Yeah.
Let me put that link in the meeting. A sec, I've got to find it. I'll probably sign in 3 times, unfortunately. Not just students that have to sign in. I keep going in, and then it tells me process failed, and then I eventually go back to where I was, and then I try again, and then it lets me in.
Yeah.
Why'd you do that? It's just horrible.
That was me thinking for a break from the OU for a number of years that the IT things had improved, but sounds maybe no.
Well, I think the trouble is every time they add a layer of security, because they're so worried about breaches, it just makes it harder, basically. It's just horrid. I'm sure it's necessary, but it's not much fun for everybody. But yeah, I don't know how many people know about the study site either, because that's a site where we put up we do put up about the events, but there's all sorts of other stuff being pulled in there too, and it's a site that we want to build and make more, get people using more than it is at the moment. So that link is to the forums, but from there hopefully you can find your way to the other parts of the site as well. So
if you have any suggestions, please come forward. We'd like to try new things.
Yeah, definitely. Right.
Okay, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's probably us. But thanks ever so much for joining us. It's really nice to we just love talking to students, because you're always so interesting and have such brilliant things to say.
Yeah, I agree.
And yeah, hopefully it seems like everyone's had a positive experience with this virtual tour, which is fabulous. So yeah, we hope look out for other events, and we very much hope that you might even think about joining us in where we need active participation, like designing an exhibition or whatever. So do consider it.
Okay.
Lovely.
Right.
Bye then.
Bye.
Bye.